Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Leslie. I talk about budgeting, decluttering, and just being a busy working mom. If any of this appeals to you, definitely hit subscribe for more videos. Today I am discussing budgeting mistakes I made as a busy working mom. So years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom, and then when my daughter was about three and a half, I went back to work. And there is a big difference in your budget when you are staying home versus going out into the workforce. There are a lot of just kind of phantom expenses that you don't really think about or you don't expect, especially if this is your first time working. Luckily, I had a work history where I worked retail for several years. Most of that was part-time, even though at one point I did have 2 jobs. But going from that situation to being a full-time working mom definitely had some unexpected costs in there. And I'm trying to get Pixel in the shot as well, but my head is kind of covering her, but she's back there chilling. Anyway, let's get on with this list. The very first expense that you should be considering as a parent is childcare cost. All of us know just how expensive it is to find someone to watch your children while you are working, and how important it is to find someone or some place that is going to take good care of them, that you're comfortable leaving your kids with. So I got really lucky because my daughter's daycare is the same one that my husband's sister went to, and it was actually the same person running it. So their age differences is pretty big. So his sister's a lot younger, but anyway, it's the same person running it. So we really knew what to expect based on her experience. And she had such a good experience there that we felt super comfortable having our daughter there, and she just completely thrived there. It's been amazing. So I'm so glad I found that one. But anyway, as far as the cost, I did not expect part-time daycare to be so expensive. So one reason that I went back to work, well, the main reason was financial goals, because I just got a basic part-time retail job when I went back to work, just to have something to bring in income. So I was going to do part-time daycare so that she could socialize and just be around other people. And her daycare had a really nice educational component, you know, learning the alphabet and numbers, shapes, that kind of stuff. So that was really nice. But part-time was almost as expensive as full-time. I mean, the price difference was so low, you might as well just go full-time. But we only went 3 days a week. I can't remember the exact cost. I want to say it was like $200 a week, whereas full-time was like $270. So the prices were pretty close. So basically, when I went to my part-time job, even though I was making a fairly decent amount, my entire paycheck went to daycare. So while my goal was to have her in daycare for the benefits to her, it was kind of rough going to work just to pay for daycare. So I did end up getting a full-time job after that, just so I would actually have money outside of her going to daycare. That was my first childcare related surprise as far as expenses went. The next one I made was when she was 4. This was actually last year when the school year was starting, because we were going to put her in public pre-K. So I made 2 big mistakes with this one. First of all, I was planning on her not having a childcare payment after she started public school, because public school is free. But I forgot about before and after school care, because because of our work schedule with my husband and I, there was no way that we could drop her off or pick her up on the exact time we needed to. So we were going to do before and after school care, but it was $175 a week for just a flat fee for both before and after school care. That was almost the cost of what we were paying for her daycare. I mean, maybe $100 a week difference, which is nice, but when I was expecting no payment for childcare at all, that's a big difference. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The other mistake was that we ended up not even putting her in public pre-K. We kept her at the preschool program at her daycare because she just liked it so much. And the price difference after learning that wasn't too bad. So it was, now it's $260 a week versus that $175 for before and after school care. So it's still doable because it's actually $10 a week less than what we paid for the daycare portion, but it's still an expense I wasn't expecting to have. So definitely keep that in mind if you're not super familiar with how the school system works, preschool and that kind of thing. You may have more expenses than you realize. Another one on top of that is going to be uniforms. So both all three, her daycare, her preschool, and the public pre-K system all have uniforms. So one thing that kind of sucks is that I bought her uniforms for public pre-K before we realized she was going to stay at her daycare pre-K. So I bought all these uniforms that she didn't even wear, and I just have my fingers crossed that they will fit for the next school year when she starts kindergarten. But at least now I know that we're going to have that before and after school care cost, so I can factor that into my budget, and we will still be paying less than preschool, so that's nice. So outside of costs for your kid, your children, you're going to have costs for yourself. There are costs to you going back to work. Things like a work wardrobe, the price of the commute, wear and tear on your car. You might be taking things to work like a gym bag or a lunch bag that you may have to purchase. You might have to buy more comfortable shoes. I mean, just all kinds of things that you don't need when you're staying at home. So it's really important to consider those costs as well, because I know when I first started my full-time job, it's a business casual situation. I had literally one business casual outfit, and that's what I wore to job interviews. So I really needed a few more pieces to kind of help me through. So I did have kind of a big clothing expense in the beginning, but luckily I did a capsule wardrobe for my work clothes, and that kept my expenses a little bit lower. So I didn't have to buy a ton of clothes. I just needed enough to be on a rotation. So I highly recommend that if you are just starting to go back to work, look into capsule wardrobes and things that you can repeat throughout the week. Another budgeting mistake I made was keeping money accidentally in my checking account. So checking, as far as interest, has a very, very low interest rate. It's not even worth getting interest in your checking account. So I move all my extra money to my savings account or my investments, which not as much, it's mostly my savings account. So you want to make sure that any extra money is going from your checking account to your savings account so that it can accrue interest. And hopefully you have a high yield savings account so you can actually get a decent amount of interest. If you do need one, I use Ally Bank. I absolutely love them. I've used them for years. I have my link in the description to set up a high yield savings account. I believe you get $100 for clicking the link, and then I get like 50 or something. I don't remember, but you do get a nice little bonus to get your savings account started. Highly, highly recommend it. I even do my investments through Ally. They're just great. One thing that's nice too with Ally, and I think with most banks, you can set up automatic transfer. So I set up $20 a week to go from checking to savings. So if I accidentally leave some extra in my checking account, it goes into my savings. And just $20 makes it to where it's that little extra that I'm forgetting about, but it's not so much where I'm gonna drop my checking account to zero. Because you definitely don't want to be overdrawing if you don't have any kind of overdraft protection or something like that. You don't want to end up with $30 or $40 taken out of your account because you overdrew. That completely defeats the purpose. So don't do that. Another thing to consider for your budget, and this is really for anyone, but it's going to be infrequent expenses. So these are things that only show up at certain points in the year. So something like gifts is a big one. If you kind of know, like obviously Christmas is a big one, or birthdays for your family members, things like that. Make sure you factor in those gifts. Also, another big one would be something like back to school. As I mentioned, I didn't realize just how much I would be paying for uniforms. They're so expensive. So you definitely need to remember that at certain points of the year, your expenses are going to go up. So make sure that you're either doing a sinking fund, or you can just factor that into your savings. So I just pull it from my savings account usually. I know not everyone likes doing that because you don't want to use your savings for like for things that you see coming up. You usually want savings for emergencies that you don't see coming, but I kind of just have it in my head that I'm going to pull a little bit out, so I try to put a little extra in, if that makes sense. But if it makes you more comfortable, do a sinking fund. Another big mistake that I made was not doing monthly budget reviews, or at least monthly. I mean, you may even want to do every time you get your paycheck, so like every other week, twice a month, whatever it happens to be. Doing these budget reviews can kind of help you see how much you're spending, and you can adjust month to month. So last year, I kept my budget the same every single month, and then I just kind of averaged out what I'd be spending. So for example, something like the salon, I'm not going every month. I maybe go like 4 times a year. So I would just divide up the cost between different months. So like if I was going to spend $400 over the course of a year on my hair, I would divide that by 12 and just put that into each month. But it was kind of hard to see. It was just kind of difficult because some months I would be under because I didn't go to the salon, and then the month I finally went to the salon, I'd be way over because I spent more than what the average was. So this year I am completely changing it to where I am doing a month-to-month budget where I change the amounts each month. So I will look at the previous month, what my expenses were, and then do my next month budget based on what I project my expenses to be, which makes so much sense when you say it out loud. I don't know why I didn't do it last year, why I chose to do averages, but I definitely recommend changing your budget month to month based on what you're going to spend. It gives you such a better idea of what you're actually going to be spending and how you can allocate your money, especially if something like saving is your goal. You can kind of see how much you're going to be saving each month. One mistake that I made was not involving my partner. So I highly recommend getting your partner on the same page with you as far as money. One thing with my husband and I is that we do have separate expenses. So it's even more important. Well, I won't say more, because if you share expenses, you should definitely be talking about where that money's going. So whether your expenses are separate or together, you need to be discussing where your money's going, what your goals are, and just everything involving your budget. You may not have to get super specific, but as long as you have like the same long-term big goals, then just make sure you're on the right track and you should be good. So with my husband and I, we both are really set on increasing our savings because we did have our savings wiped out earlier this year. So we're both super motivated to get our savings account back up. So even though we do have separate finances, we're both working on our savings account, and we can talk about what we're spending and how we want to allocate different things. And it's actually really nice that we're so open with all of our money. Because we do have separate expenses, it really forces us to talk about our money situations, because we don't see each other's account unless like one of us shows the other one the account. We don't have each other's password or anything like that. So it's really important for us to discuss things. And I even asked him, I was like, hey, should we have like one joint account? Maybe we each put a certain percent of our money into that account, and then we can use that on certain things. And he was like, not really. I would rather just like talk to you about it. So I was like, you know what, me too. I would rather just discuss it with him. So we just have completely separate finances for now. But either way, like I said, just make sure you're on the same page with your partner. Hopefully you are, because honestly, I don't have any advice if you're not, because my husband and I are just so on the same page with everything money related. I'm sure there are a lot of channels and advice out there if you're not on the same page, and hopefully something like that will help you out. The next thing, especially for busy working moms, that you need to make sure you do is budget for self-care. This is one that I didn't do because I'm really bad at doing self-care. To be honest, I think it's because I don't really value the kind of traditional things you'd think of as self-care, like things like getting your nails done or going to the salon. That's stuff that I just don't really care about. I only get my hair cut because I have to. Like, I keep it long so it's easy, but I only do things when I have to as far as that goes. And I'm not the type of person to go and get massages and any of that sort of thing. But self-care for me is things like reading before bed, having me time, working on a knitting project, things that just make me feel cozy and I can do at home and just chill and relax. So whatever self-care means to you, it could mean so many different things. Make sure you have that as part of your budget as well. Take care of yourself, your mental health, and all of that. Because if you take care of yourself, it will make it so much easier to be there for your family and to take care of them. And the final thing on this list that I made the mistake of doing was trying to keep up with lifestyle inflation as my income grew. So my income now is drastically different than it was when I was a stay-at-home mom. I think it's like, man, I don't even know how many times, 6 times as much. Like, it's a lot more than what I was as a stay-at-home mom. So now that I do have extra money, I really had to force myself to not start spending more money, because that tends to be what happens. That's why some people who have 6 figures are living paycheck to paycheck because of lifestyle inflation. They bought a better car, or a more expensive car, more expensive house. They're buying all these more expensive things that they have bills on. So it's making it just as hard to manage their money because everything is more expensive. But this is one that I struggled with a lot more in the past when I first started working, because I was really sucked into social media, seeing what the influencers were trying to sell me, seeing what the micro trends in fashion were, just all sorts of things like that. So once I kind of got my thinking under control, where I don't need all of this stuff that's being shoved in my face, it was a lot easier to not give in to this lifestyle inflation. You really want to focus on your own goals. So with me at the time, it was paying off my credit card. I didn't have too much credit card debt, but it was more than what I was able to, I had more on my card than what I was able to pay off each month. So that was a big goal. Once I got that paid off, it was so nice to not have that debt to pay every month. Then my next goal was savings. And last year I worked on my savings to where this year, when I had an emergency hit, I had my savings and I was able to deal with that emergency based on my savings. So I am so glad that I got a hold of this mindset and just let it go. There's a quote that you shouldn't spend money you don't have on things you don't need to impress people you don't like. And I absolutely love that quote. I think everyone needs to hear it. It just makes so much sense. Don't even worry about what other people are doing. You can basically either have money or look like you have money. Which one do you want? Do you want to buy the expensive things where everyone looks at you like you have money? Or do you want to buy less expensive things and then actually have money? For me, it's a no-brainer. So I really hope this list has helped you out. I definitely learned a lot of things when I was on my journey from being a stay-at-home mom to a working mom. Since I've kind of been since I have been on both sides, I've definitely learned a lot, and I would love to make more videos like this if it's something you find helpful. So just let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you like this content, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.